going to talk about crafting your personal story, the story structure. Dennis Dawson and Marcia Davis-Cannon are going to discuss the importance of stories in our personal lives as well as our professional lives. The elements of plot, creating a protagonist, the importance of a character arc, and how to build action to an exciting conclusion. This will be an interactive session that will allow the participants to craft and share their own characters and ideas. That was sent to me and I couldn't improve on it. I think that's great introduction to what we're doing. I have the pleasure of introducing Dennis Dawson. He is a two-time Distinguished Toastmaster and an avid storyteller, and I think I've heard a poem or two. He is the 2019 Humorous Speech Champion and the 2020 Tall's Tale Champion in his home district. His ego is too large to fit into a Zoom screen, so he had to leave it behind for this evening's presentation. I'm just going to ask Dennis, did you want me to introduce Marcia right now, or should we wait till her section?
Oh, we're a team.
Tag team, so I'll do it right away.
Yeah, so you definitely should introduce Marcia because you know that I'll mess it up.
I don't think that's true. Marcia Davis-Cannon has lots of designations behind her name. She's a career coach who helps her clients tell stories that land jobs. A published poet, a writing group leader, and a frequent keynote speaker. Marcia and Dennis took the first and second place in District 101 for the Tall Tales contest earlier this year. We have great storytellers to lead us through this session. Please help me welcome Marcia and Dennis.
Stories. Why do we tell stories? Go, Dennis. Here we are. That's Dennis. I'm Marcia. Keep going.
Beauty and the Beast. You got the pictures swapped, but you get the idea.
So why do we tell stories? Stories are memorable. We remember stories much better than we remember facts. So stories embed things in our minds. Stories are entertaining. They engage us. They make us laugh. We use stories to introduce ourselves to people. It's how we establish ourselves in other people's minds. We use stories to deepen our friendships. As we get more open and vulnerable and connected to someone, our deeper stories come out. We use stories in a work setting to be an unforgettable networker. If you go meet a room full of people, it's the best stories that help you remember the people you met. Is it progressing, Dennis? Is it stuck? Well, I know what the next one is, so while he gets there, we use stories to help us land jobs. Big part of the interview is to help us plant the picture, the image, the video in our prospective boss's mind of us solving the same kind of problems that he has or she has in their organization. So a great story helps us, shows us using our skills and solving problems just like this interviewer needs to have solved. All right, we'll have slides back whenever we get slides back. We use stories in all kinds of ways, both in our personal lives and in business. So we're going to walk through how you build a story. Maybe while Dennis is getting our slides back up, I'll tell you a story. Way back when I was a junior in college, I wanted a great job for that last summer of college as an undergrad. My first summer of college, I had worked as a journalist and I captured people's stories. And it was such a fun job and it earned minimum wage. So I said, okay, I can do better than that. My second summer, I worked for The Gap and in a mall store, and I was a management trainee. I could do all the things managers did, but the fact was that what I did 90% of the time was fold the blue jeans that people had taken out and then stuffed back into cubbies. It was mind-numbingly boring. And I was sure I could land a better job than that. So I signed up for an interview with Keebler Cookies. Now, I am smarter this year. I have another year of college behind me. I know how to ask questions better. So literally, as soon as the introductions finished, I said, could you tell me what a day would look like in the life of this summer job? And my interviewer said, well, you'd be stocking store shelves with Keebler cookies. And I said, I am not the candidate you're looking for. And I walked out of the interview. But I had on my pinstripe shirt, my suit, my silk scarf. I had come all the way across campus. I wasn't going to waste that effort. So I looked around the placement office to see who else was interviewing that day. And the prospect that seemed most appropriate was that General Motors was there interviewing for industrial engineers. I had taken 2 industrial engineering classes, so I signed up for the interview. Well, I couldn't sell myself as an industrial engineer, so the fortunate thing was that it turned out they had an unposted job. It was for labor relations. I had created an individual major in labor relations, and I was their perfect candidate, and they agreed. So they flew me to Michigan for another round of interviews. I had this job sewn up until the last interview of the day. That interview was with the plant superintendent. He was the person all of manufacturing reported to in this enormous factory with hundreds and hundreds of people, 3 shifts going around the clock. And we hit it off. And he saw something in me. And he said to me, if you want to learn something about labor relations, you don't want to learn it up there behind a desk. You want to learn it out here in the manufacturing floor. I'll make you a foreman, a first-line supervisor. I will give you enough rope to hang yourself, but I promise to cut you down while you're still kicking. Wow. They gave me my choice of either job. And you can guess which one I took, can't you? I took the rope. And I got Department 56, which had all men. I was 21. I was the only female supervisor in this factory. I was 21 years old, and I had this department with 16 men, ages 35 to 65, and a serious labor relations problem that we resolved like the week before I went back to college. And the guy we had the issue with came back to me and said, I want you to get credit for this because you're the only person that's ever listened to me. When that happened, I knew what I wanted to do in my career. And when I told that story, I got job offers. So that was a life-changing summer for me, a fabulous experience. All right, Dennis is back with us. Dennis, what's the scoop?
You'll have to share your screen and show the slides, I'm afraid.
All right.
I'm on a different computer. I mean, I've made a complete transformation. You can see that my beard is longer than it was when I last appeared in the meeting. You didn't tell your story already, did you?
I did. I told my story already.
Oh, and I missed it.
I figured that was the best way to use this time. All right. Here's where we were, be an unforgettable networker. And I should go to not present mode, Dennis, but what?
No, up in the upper right where it says present, way over to the right. Writer, way over to the right. Way, way, way over to the right. You're right.
Ah, there.
Yes, click that and then presenter view.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Oh.
Does that work?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, this is where we were. Excelling at interviewing. We tell stories to capture special moments, don't we? When those memorable things happen, we got to tell everybody that story. I remember when my children were little, I wrote down one sentence every day. And then after a year of that, I wrote down a paragraph every day. And when they were a little older, they just hooted with laughter at the funny things they said when they were babies, right? We tell stories to win Toastmasters contests. and maybe that's why you're all here. It's a huge advantage, whatever kind of speech you're giving, if you add stories to it. Okay, I'm gonna let you hear the great Dennis Dawson now. Hold on a sec. Can you all hear him? No.
No, you have to select share computer audio.
Can I do that from here, or do I have to go back out? But when I share screen, I'm going to stop sharing screen.
Yeah, stop share screen and then make sure click share computer sound or audio.
Very good.
Which is fine. We actually rehearsed this so many times. This is why things are going so well. Now I'll set up the video clip anyway. I wanted to start a new Toastmasters club. But you'll want to stop sharing your screen, Marcia. So stop your share. There, now you're back. Okay. And when you share again, select use share computer audio at the bottom. Great. And you can go ahead and do that anytime. So I wanted to start a new Toastmasters club at a new place of business. And so we had a bunch of people who were saying they were anxious to join, but we didn't get them to actually sign up. So I ended up first doing a live presentation, and eventually I recorded it and put it out as kind of a commercial. It's the story of how I became a Toastmaster right after I had been laid off, and I found a new position and was worried about whether or not I'd be able to keep it. So now you can start the video.
I didn't want to get laid off again. Now, the office was relatively quiet with few distractions, but about 10 feet from my desk was this large conference room. Every Tuesday at noon, there was a different sort of meeting, unlike the others that they had throughout the week. For one thing, people laughed all the time. And every few minutes, there'd be this raucous applause. Afterward, people walked out smiling. It was uncanny and a little weird. I wondered who they were, and I wondered how I could get onto that project, whatever it was. Then one day I saw a flyer in the break room. It was an invitation to a Toastmasters open house meeting. On the flyer were the two sweetest words in any language: free pizza. Now, I can't resist my favorite kind of food, free. So if whatever this Toastmasters thing was, I was all in. Now, I know you'll want to know, yes, the pizza was good, 6 varieties, including barbecued chicken. While I tried one slice of each, I listened to an interesting speaker. He talked about how Toastmasters had helped him to improve his public speaking and the practical advantages he gained by becoming a member.
Now I know you're asking, did that commercial actually work? Well, yes, we went from 17 to 43 members pretty much overnight. And that is the power of storytelling. Beep. This is the basic structure that you're going to find with most stories. They're going to begin with some sort of introduction, then something happens. That's called the inciting incident. Someone's normal life is suddenly disrupted, and as a result, they have to do something. Maybe they have to leave home, maybe they have to change jobs or careers, but there is an inciting incident that kicks off the action of the story. That is followed by the rising action as more and more events occur until you get to the climax, the most important occurrence in the story. And immediately after the climax, you have a satisfying resolution to the story. Most importantly, you have to have a protagonist for your story. Well, here are three protagonists. A protagonist is the person you're telling a story about. The person that you're focusing on has to be interesting, and to be interesting, they have to have some sort of goal. They have to have something that they are working toward. So in the case of Luke Skywalker, he wants a life of adventure and he's stuck on the farm. His uncle is an obstacle to his ability to get off of the planet and go out and explore the stars. In the movie Working Girl, Tess wants to be in the high stakes world of Wall Street finance, but the men won't take her seriously. That's the obstacle that she has to overcome in order to achieve her goal. And of course, Ralphie wants a BB gun, but if he gets the BB gun, he's going to shoot his eye out. And he has to convince all the adults in the world that it's safe for him to have a BB gun. So to have a protagonist you care about, they have to have a goal that you share their concern for, and you want to be rooting for them to achieve whatever that goal might be. Now, to practice this, we actually have a little exercise, don't we, Marcia?
Yes, we do. How do I get to it, Dennis? That's in my, okay, I'll stop sharing this.
I can post
you can
the
talk for a bit while I get it.
Well, no, I'll post the hyperlink into the chat window in Zoom while you tell people what we're going to do.
All right. Well, we are going to give you some practice in writing a story, but we're going to help you. We're not going to let you just write a true story. We're going to help you make up a story. This document has a bunch of pieces of information in it. One of them is a character's life motto. One of them is a character's favorite possession. One of them is a character's favorite thing to wear. One is a character's flaw. One is their most distinguishing characteristic. One is their most prized possession. Pick a couple of these. Pick a flaw maybe and a life motto and something remarkable about a person. And how long do we have, Dennis? 5 minutes?
Well, go 5 minutes, yeah.
5 minutes, write a quick story, develop your character in a couple of sentences, give them a flaw, give them an obstacle, give them some progress, see if you can get them to a quick climax and resolve their challenge. Or maybe on 5 minutes, all you can do is describe this character in a rich and interesting way. That's good too.
Yes,
Ready, set, go.
Right now, we're trying to come up with a protagonist, so you can just take these Post-it notes, move them around to create a character. Later on, we'll try and develop them into a fully fledged story. There we go. Yeah, feel free to drag them around. The one thing you cannot do is click the button that says clear frame. Don't do that. Had somebody do that in a VPE training class the other day and wiped out everybody's work. Don't click, clear frame, thank you. And just for fun, I'll share the screen for those of you who aren't actually over there moving around the Post-it notes so that everybody can see it. But don't do what I did the other day. Don't try to click on the Zoom screen and change the position of the Post-it notes, because you'll just frustrate yourself, as I did. Now, if you don't see a protagonist that you would want to play with, you can always create a new sticky note, or you can copy one of the notes that's out there. Let's see. I don't see bloated, aged, washed up, technical writer. There I am. I actually have a unibrow, and it was copper colored, but that was back when I had hair, and it was red.
You keeping track, Dennis? We're about halfway through, right?
Yeah. Oh, we got people drawing on it. Yes, you can draw too. All right, so what protagonist did you come up with based on Marcia's ideas here? Anybody want to report out here quickly? What you combined to create your new star of your show?
Hi there.
Yes,
Well, I couldn't write on the board. Sorry, I was moving around, but then I have something in my mind. So this girl is from one of my sessions, like therapy sessions. So here is a pretty and a kind girl, but then she is quite disturbed in her head because she gets angry because she has a terrible self-image. So that is the you know, the beginning of the story, maybe till
Rich
the mid.
character. Ah.
Yeah.
I think only 90% of the world's population could identify with that, but sure, go with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I selected two. One is 4-inch stiletto heels covered with rhinestones, oversized black sunglasses. The girl of my dreams for the nightmare of my life. and then fake it till you make it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you may not know how to do it, but just keep on faking it until you get to it. That's the story of my life also.
Well, you certainly caught the other 10% who weren't covered by the first 90.
Kevin.
Chucky liked the spotlight. Standing at 6'4", and that was before his hair, which stood up straight like the quills of a hedgehog, he was excited to be starting in the regional tournament as the ace volleyball player. The only problem was, while he was gifted with athleticism and height, he had no knowledge of the game. Yet everyone was so impressed with his intimidating physique that he himself had begun to believe that he might be a remarkable player. That was as far as I got.
Fabulous.
Maybe one more.
Any volunteers?
You know, I noticed so many of the videos are turned off. Please feel free to turn your video on. That way we can see whether we're boring you. All right, I'm going
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Groff.
How are you doing? So I just put my baby to sleep. So so my story, let's call him Sanjay. He has long, flowing, silver gray hair, not unlike Dennis. The weird thing is he was strangely lucky when it came to finding great deals on Craigslist. He would search for random stuff that he wanted, and oftentimes he would find exactly what he needed at a very good deal within 1 or 2 searches. Because of this strange luck, he became irrationally optimistic, much to the dislike of his family and especially his wife. That's where I got.
Very nice job combining all of those different elements. And it's great to have a springboard like this. You might think it's cheating or what have you, but all we're doing is striking a match to the fuse, and you're the one who's going to create the explosion. All right, I'm going to share my screen, Marcia, and hopefully
Go for it.
I'll be able to stay with you. There we go. And you're off.
That's you.
You would prefer I do this one, okay? But you're going to do the next one.
I'll do
so
the
you
next
get ready.
one.
All right. Here's a more realistic depiction of the action in a story. That first graph was sort of a few straight lines, but that's not really how stories go, right? At first, you have some time to get to know your protagonist, get to know what their normal life is like. Once you understand their comfortable world, where they're coming from, that's when something happens. And once that thing happens, you see a series of crises with the tension going up throughout the story. Each of these crises is an obstacle. And the whole point is that your character will continually have to overcome obstacles. When you have overcome all of the obstacles, and especially the most critical obstacle there at the end, that's the end of the story. So you don't want your character to overcome obstacles too easily. However, whatever solution you come up for every obstacle absolutely works, because you are in charge of this world. You're the mighty creator. So you have obstacles, you get to that major crisis, boom, everything resolves. and then you bring it quickly to a satisfying end. That's one of the things I dislike about the previous chart. It seems like there's a climax and then you have a very slow, gradual ending, but that's not it at all. Usually in a, say, 200-page novel, when you have the denouement, you're going to have no more than 5 pages to end the story. Tie everything up, nice and sweet, but get out of there because people want to read your next book, don't they, Marcia?
Absolutely. Now, that plot line is only half of a great story. The other half is the character arc. The protagonist, as we talked a little bit before, has to want something, have a goal, and try to get it. But they have to have something in the way, some obstacle, some flaw perhaps. And by the end, their attitude has changed about that goal. Okay? Let's talk about Kevin in Home Alone. If you remember the very beginning of that story, Kevin is kind of a whiny little kid who is really sick of his family and wishes he had some alone time. And of course he gets, you gotta be careful what you wish for, he gets that wish. And so even though the plot line is all of the devices he comes up with to keep the burglars out of his house, there is a character arc as well, where Kevin begins to appreciate how much his family means to him and wishes, in fact, they were back with him and he could have family time again. So that's what makes a story really satisfying, is when you get both a growth in the character, even a resolution, a transformation of their flaw, in addition to a great plot. Okay?
And I'll tell you something that I just discovered yesterday, something that will make us all appreciate how much older and wiser Macaulay Culkin has grown. Yesterday was his 40th birthday.
Oh, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody feel old now? Just checking.
So here's a quote, that the flaws in a character are always more interesting than the strengths. So when you're putting your character together, don't feel like you have to minimize those flaws. They're actually the interesting part. Okay. Let's talk about Harry Potter. Harry Potter in the beginning was a very meek character. Who lived under the thumb of his aunt and uncle and had no awareness of his power, of his effect on other people. And he was so curious, it frequently got him into trouble. But over the course of the books, he developed he stepped into his power. He got a little bit of control of his curiosity, or at least he brought reinforcements. He understood how important friends were and how much they can add to your success. Next. And if you remember the movie Hitch tried to help people fall in love, and he was really good at it, but his own flaw was that he had been hurt so badly, he was not willing to be vulnerable enough to open up to love himself. But after a series of humiliations, he ultimately decided that being vulnerable and open and finding his own love was the best solution. Okay.
Now, within the framework that we've already discussed, you can also tack on the hero's journey. And this is the journey as it was defined by Joseph Campbell. So start off with an ordinary life. Again, you have that inciting incident where you're called to adventure. At first they refuse, but then something happens where they actually have to get out of their starting place. So they immediately go off on a quest. They change jobs, change location. Usually it's a physical location. And as they're on their journey, they have to prepare for the danger that's going to accost them. Eventually they have to confront their fear. They end up in serious trouble and they absolutely hit bottom. But it's from there that they see the actual goal that they want to achieve. They see how they can get there. That's where you get into the final building action toward the confrontation that leads to a major transformation. Here he calls it death and resurrection, where they have something that takes them to the very end. Think about Frodo when he is finally going to throw that ring into the river of fire, and he can't do it, so it takes Gollum jumping on his back, chewing off his finger, and falling into the fire for that story to end. But in effect, Frodo dies on that hill, and he's only rescued by the eagles. That, by the way, why didn't he take the eagles there in the first? I don't know. That's okay, but he's only rescued because the eagles pick him up and take him off of that flaming mountain. And so that story very easily fits into the hero's journey. Let's think about Luke Skywalker. He did have a humdrum bucolic life. Then he gets Leia's message via R2-D2. Obi-Wan invites him on a quest, but he refuses. He's got to stay. He's got to take care of the droids. He's got to work on his aunt and uncle's farm. But then his aunt and uncle are killed, and there's nothing keeping him on Tatooine. He leaves, face the rest of the process. Obi-Wan is killed. Okay. And the plans to destroy the Death Star, and he's the only one who can do it. He blows up the Death Star. There's a celebration and medal. The end. The same is true of the story of Ulysses, who went sailing off to return from the Peloponnesian War, and because he angered the gods, he was blown off course. When he got very close to home, he pissed them off again, whoosh, and they blew him away. He had to deal with the Cyclops and Circe, all of these adventures. When he gets home, he has to fight off all of the suitors so that he can get back with his wife and back to the life that he'd always had. Once again, a hero's journey. And you can always use this particular formula to come up with a story that will be satisfying every single time. And we made a note here, Marcia, that National Novel Writing Month is in November. So we're coming up on that again.
And if you haven't heard of this, if you like to write, and I heard that from some of the people at the beginning, National Novel Writing Month is a worldwide phenomenon where tens of thousands of people around the world attempt to write a 50,000 word novel first draft in the month of November. Now, the first time I heard about this, can we go to the next slide? I thought this is brilliant, because what keeps, almost everybody has a book in them. What keeps people from writing their books? Well, writer's block, right? Because we sit down and we want to have a perfect story come out of our fingers. And you know what? Stories aren't perfect when they come out of our fingers. But there is a cure for writer's block. And in the years that I led a writing group, I shared this, and it always worked. So it will work for you too. Here's the answer. Start writing. Even if you don't, not yet, even if you don't know what you're going to write, just start writing. Even if the words you're typing are, I have no idea where I am going with this. By the time you write 2 sentences like this, your brain will take you someplace interesting. If the only way to stay stuck in terms of writer's block, the only way to be blocked is if you don't move. If you move, and particularly it's your hand and your dominant arm that need to move. So if you're dictating a story, pump your right arm or your left arm, if you're a lefty, up and down, and that will get the same effect to your brain. You need to move so that your brain moves. Okay, next slide. You've got, editing is a key part of any great story, but it isn't the first part. And the thing you absolutely need to know about writing stories is that you cannot write them, create them, and edit them at the same time. So create your story, do your first draft, and then separately go back and edit it. The creation part is a right brain exercise. The editing part is a left brain exercise. If you start editing in the middle of creating, you shut down the creative process to a dead halt, and then you're stuck again. So just let your editor take a nap and create your story. Let the words flow. Don't worry about sentence structure or spelling or punctuation or whether you've got a commanding lead sentence in your paragraph and then support sentences following it up. None of that matters in the first draft. The first draft is to get the story flowing, get the words out, get the character created, get the plot line going. Then you can go back and refine it in the editing step.
Now, the one thing you always have to remember about writer's block is what is stopping you is all in your head. There is a voice in your head that's saying, oh, you don't want to write. You would rather do anything else. This is something that Stephen Pressfield, he was the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance. He wrote a book called The War of Art, and he will tell you that there is this actual entity called resistance. And resistance knows exactly how to stop you from doing whatever you want to do. If you want to lose weight, if you want to write a story, if you want to ride a bicycle, resistance is that voice in your head that tells you not to do it. And they will try every trick in the book to stop you. So you have to recognize that voice and realize that voice is you. And all you need to do is give that voice a hug. Come over here, you big lug. I know you would rather be doing something else, but right now, I'm going to be writing. So you just wait, and when the time is right, I'm going to get up and do the stupid thing you want to do. But right now, you're going to shut your pie hole. You're going to go stand in the corner because it's time to write. Now, I am a professional writer, a technical writer, so not a fun writer, but I have to write. And that means I don't have the luxury of writer's block. This is one of my favorite quotes. Art of writing requires the application of a pair of pants to a chair. Or Somerset Maugham, as he says, I can only write when I'm inspired. Fortunately, inspiration strikes every morning at precisely 9 a.m. And that's the way I have to approach my writing. I can't have writer's block. If I do, I can't put groceries on the table. So when I sit down to write, I have no trouble getting started. However, that doesn't mean I start at the beginning. Many times, that's what's hard, is putting down the first sentence, getting the story started. So I jump to the middle, start writing about the fun part, the action. After I've got that in there, I can go back and add the more boring parts that you see at the beginning of the story. That's called beginning in medias res. That's Latin for in the middle of things. Now, remember Star Wars and how that story started out? Once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, there lived a boy named Luke who dreamed of going to the academy. He lived a bucolic life with his aunt and uncle, repairing droids and driving his land speeder. No, that's not how the story started, is it? No, it starts with a huge spaceship, frantic space battle, Darth Vader appearing with all of his stormtroopers, and they kidnap Princess Leia. All of that action was in there. Now, you might not know that there were originally 9 stories written before the New Hope was made. When George Lucas sat down and looked at all the stories, he had to figure out which one of them was the most saleable, which one of these scripts is going to get the green light. And he chose episode 4 because it had the most action in it. So this is a great example of starting in medias res. He started 4 movies in because he knew that was the best place to start telling the story. Now, this all fits within the scope of a single novel or an extended story. Generally, when you're telling a story, you've got about the first quarter of the book before you have that inciting incident, so you can describe how things were. But when you get to the absolute middle of the story, and this is something I have observed time and again in movies and in books, if you go exactly to the middle page, if you go to exactly the middle minute, that is when something occurs in the story where the character might have been sort of trying things or messing about, or if it's a mystery, they're asking questions of a bunch of people, they're getting nowhere. But at exactly the middle, they get the clue. They get that gem of information they need in order to advance all the way to the end of the story. If you want a perfect example of this, just watch an episode of House, the medical show, because every episode has got a crisis right in the middle where they thought the patient was getting better. Suddenly, the patient takes a turn for the worst. But however they take a turn for the worst is the first clue toward the ultimate solution for that week's illness of the week. So that's something you can take advantage of in your stories, and go right to the middle, write the middle page, and then work outward if that is a more comfortable way for you to get going. But once you get 3/4 of the way through the story, all bets are off. At the 3/4 point, you're going to advance straight to the big climax and your denouement. So there's no time for a character to take a nap or sit down and have a long conversation about their feelings, unless, of course, it's a romantic comedy. But in those, the last quarter of the story, you want to be moving straight as an arrow exactly toward the denouement rather than waffling around. And that's how you are able to capture your audience and keep them with you all the way to the end. And I think you'll find this is true in most of the books and movies that you watch. But when you get to the end, it's got to have a very satisfying resolution through there. The longer your story, the longer the resolution can be. And I give the Lord of the Rings in this particular case, because if you went to see the movie, I hope when you got to The Return of the King, you didn't drink a large 32-ounce beverage before you sat down, because this movie had 7 endings. Every time you get, oh, good, Frodo's back home, up, not over. And then they had the resolution with the king, and then, oh, okay, oh no, and now they have the resolution where they all sail away, oh, okay, oh, and then they had the resolution where Sam got married, okay, but please, and you're really anxious to get to the men's room by the end. But they had to do all of that because there was no other way to wrap up all the stories that had happened. Now, usually when you read the first book of a trilogy, it's got a very satisfying ending as you think back on them. Now, that reason that the first book in a trilogy always has a great ending, or the first movie in a trilogy always has a great ending, is because they don't know if there are going to be any more. All they know is they've sold this one. Well, when they expand it to a trilogy, you know that the second part is always going to be unsatisfying, because now the author says, hey, I've got plenty of time. I don't have to wrap things up here. In fact, I'm going to leave everything loose so that everybody has to read the third book. And that's what happened with the Star Wars trilogy. A New Hope, yay, the Death Star's gone, yay, hey, celebration all around. But the end of The Empire Strikes Back, very different, very unsatisfying. Everything is left open. It isn't until you get to The Return of the Jedi that you've got a real satisfying conclusion to that particular trilogy. So that's how you structure a story. And at this point, Marcia, are you ready to take them on a little journey here?
Go for it.
Okay. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to take that protagonist, jot down their goals, give them 3 obstacles, 3 things that are going to prevent them from achieving their goal. You want to figure out a climax, that would be the ultimate obstacle that they have to overcome, and a denouement. What happens after they achieve that major goal or overcome that major obstacle? Remember, it doesn't matter how foolish, how silly, how fanciful your solutions are, they always work because it's your world. So we're going to give you 5 minutes, create your own world. and then we'll all, of course, report out. We'll wrap up in about 30 seconds. And we'll want everybody to give a 1-minute synopsis of their story. As I was sitting here, I realized that my story of a washed-up technical writer might be that he wanted to get involved and share his storytelling abilities, but he was unknown in District 101. So how could he possibly be recognized outside of his previous Toastmasters experience? Well, the first thing he did was he had to win a contest. So he worked really hard, was able to win that contest, and in so doing, he ran into some people that could help him to find new audiences. He found a mentor in Abhijit Joshi, and he found a seminar co-presenter in Marcia Davis Cannon. And then he was able to use those connections to make an international splash by coming to this club this evening and reaching an audience around the world with what little he knows about how to tell a story. All right, so let's hear from a much more attractive protagonist who would like to share. You can unmute yourself and say me.
Me?
Go.
Okay. Thank you. My story is about the daydreamer. This young man, he dreamed of becoming a famous Hollywood superstar. But his dad didn't believe in him and told him, you know, he would always throw him off and tell him to get a job. He needs a job. But his mother, on the other hand, who was very empathetic because she too, when she was younger, wanted to be an actress. So she supported him. The dad didn't support him. So what he did, his obstacles, the first one was the father. The other one, he didn't have any acting skills. And nor did he have any funds for acting school. So the third obstacle is he ran into many roadblocks because of the lack of support from his father and no funds. And the resolution, he decided to volunteer at a movie house, you know, stage hand, clean up, and the works. And then one day, the door was open for him to have a small part, and guess what? As a janitor, he was elated and he accepted the part, and the rest is history. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Tanisha.
Hi, Dennis.
Go ahead, Tanny.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll just take a minute, a quick
Sure.
1 minute. Since I started my story, I would like to end it. So, okay, so this is this girl who is pretty and kind, but then is disturbed in her head because she has a terrible self-image of herself. And the obstacles are, she goes to the world for external validation all the time. She measures herself up to some faulty measuring criteria and standards which were implanted by people around her. And then she doesn't look outwards and inwards. She believes that her makeup makes her look pretty. So that is a complete illusion that she has created around herself over years and, you know, since her teenage. So now the resolution that I could quickly come to were that she started taking note of her qualities inside out and her key highlights of her appearance and her inner qualities, and realizes and analyzes that the the yardstick that she was trying to live up to was completely faulty, and the global standards which were, kind of thrown at her were not actually the ones that she needs to follow. And finally, she manifests the beauty into her own experience, and she calms down her inner self because her anger fades away when she realizes that, she is absolutely what she always had wanted to be. That's a story.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'll go. So my original story was about Chucky, the 6'4" volleyball player with the spiky porcupine hair, but had no idea how to play. What happened next with him was he's getting all this attention, and he entrusts a confidant, which is a girl who's on the female girls volleyball team, and he tells her he doesn't know how to play. So they spend the night doing drills, and he learns a thing or two from her. Then it's the day of the game in the tournament, and he can't find his shoes, and he's looking all over his shoes, and on his way out of the bathroom, he trips over the star player on the team he's about to go play. And in the end, with the support of his team, the girl, the confidant, the mentor who trained him how to play, bringing him his shoes at the final minute, he's able to hold his own with making a few mistakes and score the game-winning point.
Fantastic. I think we need to wrap up, but notice how easy it is for everyone to just sit down, come up with a character, come up with some obstacles, and create the story. All that you have to do now is plant your pair of pants on a chair and write 3 pages a day. That's the goal. If you write 3 pages per day, that's 100 pages a month. That's a novel in 3 months. Imagine how you will feel if you've completed a novel by the end of November. Marcia, what do you think?
It's true. And if you want to join NaNoWriMo, that's National Novel Writing Month, the beauty of this whole process is it's writing only a first draft of a novel. And that means you can't edit. You don't have time to edit. And it forces you to do this first draft stuff. That is the secret to writing well, is to forget about editing, do the first draft in the creative process, and then go back later and edit things.
The key thing to always keep in mind, I teach children to draw, and the first thing I tell them is, if you want to draw really well, you're going to have to draw really badly for a while, and eventually you'll draw well.
And
so
it works just as well for writing. If you want to write well, you got to be willing to write badly.
That's
Nobody
right.
was born writing well. The people who write well are the people who wrote a lot, and they wrote badly, and then they got better and better and better. You can do the same.
So thanks very much for having us. Toastmaster Margaret, we turn the show back to you.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure how to thank you. I think everybody should take their mics off and clap and cheer for these two. They've done a spectacular job.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Woo!
I can write right now.
Thank
We
you.
may
Thank
be
you.
online, but we can make noise. I agree 100%. Now, I do not have anything other than an icebreaker speech left, but I don't have an introduction. Abby, do you have an introduction for the icebreaker speech?
Actually, no, but we'll start with Kenneth. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
just let Kenneth take it away.
Yes.
I like it. All
Okay.
right, Kenneth, you're on.
Thank you, Toastmaster Margaret. This is my second Toastmaster meeting ever. The last one was last week, so we'll see how it all goes. This story is actually fairly relevant to Marcia's story earlier. This is the story how I landed my current job, finally doing my dream of doing data analytics, now working for a startup. So I'm the sort of person who is pretty well accustomed to flying by the seat of my pants. In my industry, it's not uncommon for people to ask questions in an interview setting and saying, what's your superpower? And I pretty much always say adaptability. That being said, in recent times, I've begun to appreciate a more structured approach and how easier it can make things work. To give you an idea about how I came to have that one moment where I started to really appreciate that, I need to tell you about how my 2020 has gone so far. 7 months ago, I was on the edge of a great precipice. After a year of research, including a 10-day excursion to Australia, hi Harry, I was ready to leave my cushy job at a disruptive internet website company backed by big Silicon Valley money that was doing big, exciting things. I was caught up with having a chance to make a fresh start and to be perfectly vulnerable. I was giving a try at dating a girl from Sydney who I'd been involved with in a long-distance relationship for the last year and a half. Yet, set as I was to get off to Australia, I found myself 3 weeks before still not having given my notice at work, and all of a sudden, my girlfriend and I were having that talk about our future. Much to my surprise, I found that right before we were about to start, I was suddenly left single and now had a big decision to make. They say people move for one of 3 reasons: for work, for love, or for adventure. I figured that over the last couple of years, I had built up some necessary skills in data analytics, and I'd never lived anywhere other than in California, so what the heck, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. My next move was to tell my boss of my intention to move to Australia. This also came off as a surprise to my team, and despite having given them 3 weeks notice, I wasn't able to do my handoff of affairs up until 45 minutes before my exit interview. Classic. The next Sunday, I put myself on a plane with grand hopes of finding a new job and beginning a new chapter. I may have lost what was my primary support network, but I trusted that I could make it work. I liked this feeling of setting off on my own. Using LinkedIn and every network at my disposal, I set up a series of coffee chats and emails, and I was getting momentum. And somehow I even found myself as a user group leader for an ETL tool, despite having only been in the country a week. Being new to the country, I took the initiative to do some traveling before I had a proper job tying up all of my free time. I decided I would like to visit Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, which, if you're not very familiar with Australia, it's essentially a really big red rock out in the middle of the outback. I jumped on a value saver plane out to the middle of the desert to a little place called Alice Springs. I was not prepared for what was in store. From the moment I got off the plane and walked across the runway, there were flies attacking everyone. The flies were effectively the equivalent of being caught up in a Michigan snowstorm and were a real force to be reckoned with. For the next 4 days, I was off the grid. I was camping under the stars, learning the geological history of Australia, and really enjoying myself. I returned back to Alice Springs, keen to finally get some Wi-Fi. I'll never forget that day. It was March 6th, and when I got back with the Wi-Fi, I was surprised to learn that American treasure Tom Hanks had contracted coronavirus, not just anywhere, but in Sydney. And every single company that I had ever given my email address had decided to email me about how they were responding to COVID. Pardon my French, but the shit had hit the fan for the past 4 days, and I had entirely missed it. I didn't know what I was going to do exactly. In between a somewhat humorous case of a toilet paper hoarding incident in Australia, I realized that every single one of those companies that I had been interviewing with was now engaging in a hiring freeze. What was I going to do? How was I going to financially support myself? I pushed on, and with a huge stroke of luck, I came up with a plan and began working some hours for a friend who had said he could use some help doing some ETL work. Before I knew it, 10 hours a week had evolved into a full-time position, as well as I brought in a good friend of mine to join the team. I had gone from 0 to maybe 120 miles per hour. With a new demanding work schedule compounded by a 16-hour time difference, I needed to adhere to a strict schedule in order to get things done. No longer could I rely on my intuition and luck. I had to adopt a firm appreciation of project management, methodology, and calendars. So here I am today. After realizing the struggles of a 16-hour time difference on my career for the last 6 months, I made the choice to return back to the United States. I would say that my thirst for scenery, for a change of scenery continues, as while I'm happy to be home, already my eyes are set on striking out from California to go give Colorado a go. Thank you, Toastmaster Margaret.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. That was a very fast-paced speech. I really enjoyed learning more about you and your adventures as you were looking for a job. I know there's people still looking for jobs nowadays, so I hope that's encouraging for them. You are able, if you would like, to give Kenneth some positive feedback in the chat if you want to just address it to him so he can hear what he did very, very well. And I assume that we have Derek as an evaluator. Is that right?
I see it next to my name, so I figured I am the evaluator.
Thank you, Derek. You will need a minute or two. I'm not sure. How are you doing there? Do you need a couple more minutes?
Just about 30 seconds.
All right, we can do that. I'm hoping that Kenneth is getting some good feedback from all of our helpful people. We like to provide the positive and encourage maybe one thing he could improve on, but we're not going to work too hard. This is his very first speech, and it was very, very informative. We learned a lot about our friend Kenneth tonight, and I really appreciate all that he put into his icebreaker or his first speech after one meeting. So I think that is incredibly brave, and we will let you, I'm sure we will hear more from at our club. Now.
Okay, I'm ready.
You're ready. Yay. Yeah. Thank you, Derek. I'd like to introduce Derek as our evaluator, and he's going to evaluate Kenneth's speech. Thank you very much, Derek.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, didn't you for just 1 minute think about how your life changed over these last few months of 2020? As you listened to Kenneth talk about his transition from California all the way down to Australia and the myriad of things that took place in his life, just think about all of that detail Kenneth was able to unveil to us as he introduced himself to us for the very first time. Kenneth, I want to commend you for the job that you did this afternoon. You took us on that ride with having that conversation with your girlfriend who no longer was your girlfriend because you were changing your life. What an amazing ride. You took us all the way down to Alice Rock. Oh, where the flies. You had to fight just to get to the scenery. Kenneth, I want to encourage you to keep writing the way that you did, are doing, the way you string your story together. You put a good opening, body, and definite conclusion to your whole story. I would want to challenge you, Kenneth, to do this one thing. Leave a little bit for us to want for more. You will have an opportunity as a Toastmaster with Pathways to reintroduce yourself 10 more times as you expand on the various paths. So don't give us all again the next time around. Leave some a little bit more as a cliffhanger for the next time around, so we would want to come back to hear you for the second time. Last but not least, in this Zoom platform, the way that you're seated right now, we're seeing you off to the side. One of the things I would have done is taken that opportunity as I was speaking, even though I might have been to the side, on those key points when I'm talking about my girlfriend, I'd turn to the camera and probably mention her name. Or when I was talking about the toilet paper rush, I would have a roll of toilet paper and to show it, just to bring that excitement out. Other than that, love hearing your story, and I'm interested in hearing more about you as you grow within the Toastmasters program. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Job well done.
Thank you, Derek. That was really helpful.
Thank you, Derek, for a very concise and to the point evaluation. And I'm hoping, Kenneth, that you're getting lots of good comments in the sidebar as well from all the other people that enjoy Toastmasters. We are now ready to have a look at our schedule for the next few weeks. Next week, we're doing gestures. The week after that, I know we have it booked, and I'm going to hand it over to Abhijit because he knows that schedule inside and out.
September 11th is How to Write a Speech in 10 Minutes by Michael Hoynaski.
Okay.
On September 18th, Accent Reduction Workshop by Sheila Lebedenko. September 26th is How to Evaluate by Solorzar de la Porta.
We are a club that just keeps everything, the action going, and I love it. We're learning and growing every day. We are doing very well, and I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to join us tonight. And I think we're going to leave it open. If you want to chat with someone, maybe just let us know. I'm not sure if we have the breakout rooms open, but I would love to chat with people a little more and see what else we could do. If you have any suggestions, let us know. I call the meeting adjourned, but if you'd like to chat and stick around for a while, feel free.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Derek.
We have quite the great team that works with, that helps out all these meetings.
Wonderful job, Margaret.
Thank you. It's fun to see so many friendly, smiley faces. It's just great.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Tanny.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.